All right, good morning, everybody. Please confirm that you can hear me and you can see my screen. Can anyone see my screen and hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen, sir.
All right, awesome. So today will be our first day talking about Node.js. So we're doing introduction to Node. But before I continue, I want to apologize because I was really engaged throughout last week, so I couldn't do any recordings as I said I would do. So I want to apologize for that. But today we're going to just go into Node.js. And if there's any topic as I teach, I will come across a concept that I'm using in Node.js that we did not cover during our JavaScript discussion, I'm going to treat it, all right, before we go ahead with that concept. So let's begin. So what is Node.js? Well, Node.js is basically JavaScript runtime, as many of you might already know. Okay, but that runtime it sounds like a buzzword, like something that you just say. You don't know what it means, but you just say it. Node.js is a runtime. You get so. But it's a very simple, it has a very simple meaning, right? Runtime means an environment for something to run, okay? So that was it. So an environment that gives it a time to run. So runtime kind of, you get the concept. So Node.js is a platform that allows JavaScript, that runs JavaScript. We'll use that word, okay? So what's the importance of Node.js? Why did we have to ever come up with Node.js? All right. So before the what I call it invention of Node.js, we usually run JavaScript on the browser, as you have seen. Some of this while. So basically just command do whatever you want to do. I equals 0, and then so your JavaScript will run on the browser. Okay, that's what So that's what we were able to do before Node.js was born. All right, so this JavaScript console is serving as a runtime, as you can see. All right, so it's serving as a runtime for JavaScript because it allows JavaScript to run. All right, so what you had was browser. So you had the browser, and then inside your browser, you now have the V8, right? And then this the V8 is now the guy that interprets for your machine. All right, so you had the browser, you had the V8, and you had your machine. So that is before Node.js. But now that we have Node.js, Node.js replaces the browser. All right. Then you have V8 and you have your machine. All right, so it's clear. Okay, so Node.js just replaced the browser. But what's the importance of Node.js? If it simply just replaced the browser, can we just continue using the browser and ignore Node.js? All right, if it's just an alternative to the browser, which it is not, it is completely different from the browser. Okay, so Node.js is something you can install on your machine, and then you run JavaScript on that platform. Node.js platform has the V8 engine inside of it. All right, and then the V8 will interpret to the machine itself. That's your computer. All right. So let's look at the interaction that used to happen before now. So you have your browser. Let me just copy one of these. So you have your browser, and then your browser will talk to the server. All right. So the browser will talk to the server and say, I need www.google.com. All right, this is how your browser will communicate. All right, I need www.google.com, and then the server will respond with some pages, like a page or some pages, some files, let's say some files, all right? But then the sheaf of them all is going to be your HTML code. So you have your index.html, all right? So this is like the main guy, index.html. Without this guy, you see nothing. All right. You type google.com. Without this guy coming back, you get nothing. All right. So that's how a browser operated. And then this index.html, all right, now has links to other resources, right? Has links to your your JS file, whatever you call it, just say index.js. Okay. And then also has a link to the style.css, right? The CSS. So what happened is that because this guy has been loaded, this your index.js .html file has been loaded. While it is being parsed, the browser realized that, oh, we need the index.js, so it goes to the server and call for index.js and returns it back. We need style.js, it goes to the server, calls for style.js and returns it back. All right. So what happens is that when your index.js is loaded in the browser, right, the codes inside of it now begin to execute, all right, according to how you have written it, all right. If it needs to wait for an event before it's, some part of it gets activated, it waits for that event, it starts listening for that event, all right. But basically, your JavaScript has to be loaded through your HTML, so not directly. You do not run JavaScript directly on the server. All right. What happens is that a file is sent to your browser, and then the JavaScript is run on your browser. So the browser was the environment for JavaScript. JavaScript was restricted to the browser. It did not run outside of the browser. All right. But then with the introduction of Node.js, you now have an alternative to that. All right. So this guy here. So now have an alternative, a more dynamic alternative to that. So with this Node.js, what happens is that you can Node.js lives on the server. It doesn't live on the browser. All right. So if we do this now, let's bring back this design. Let's bring back this design. So this for Node.js now. So for Node.js, I'm gonna make all these guys white. So for Node.js, what happens is that we have the node installed on the server, right? So let's get this guy. So this guy is installed on the server. Okay. So what happens is that when we make a request, right? We make a request, and typically we could do something like google.com, right? But then let's just make it more familiar. So we'll do something like www.api, all right, let's say google.com, all right, or developers.google.com, something like that. But let's just use API just to state that we're trying to interact with an API. So when you hit, so Node.js receives this your request, all right, and then Node.js is going to run some JavaScript. So let's get this now. Node.js runs some JavaScript, and based on that JavaScript, it is going to return a response to you. So let me get rid of this, guys. So Node.js, based on that JavaScript, is going to return a response to the browser or whoever calls it, all right? So you can call from the browser, you can make the call from anywhere, all right? As long as that platform can make HTTP requests, you can get access to this, all right? So the request is made to the Node.js server. Node.js runs on the server. So Node.js will be like the OS running on your machine, all right? And then When Node.js receives the request, it runs some JavaScript, all right? And then the JavaScript returns a result to your browser. All right, so if you notice anything, you will discover that before Node.js, right, the server had just the responsibility of returning files to us, all right? Your code did not run on the server. I'm talking about JavaScript now because other languages, have been doing what Node.js just started doing, all right? PHP and the rest, they run code on the server, right? But then I'm just saying that in the terms of JavaScript wasn't running on the server, all right? So JavaScript is returned to the browser, and then the browser is going to pass the JavaScript and then do whatever instruction you have in that code, right? But then with Node.js, JavaScript now runs on the server and is able to do a lot of things and then return the request to your browser, all right? So with JavaScript, you get files returned to you. So you could get a music file, you could get so with the browser, I mean, you could get a music file, you could get a text file, you could get any type of file returned to you, all right? But with Node JS and JavaScript now, we can still return those things, but in addition, we can also return things like this JSON formatted response. We can return XML, all right? And then what other format? You can even return text format, all right? TXT format directly. Okay, so depending on how you want to respond to that request. Okay, so in a nutshell, Node.js made it possible for us to run JavaScript server-side. Okay, so now the advantage is that if you are a developer,
Hello, sorry, your
and
voice is
maybe before
breaking.
now, all you could do was to write front-end programs, right? Programs that run. Sorry, what did you say?
I said your voice is
Can you
breaking.
hear me, guys? Can you guys hear me?
Your voice is fading away, breaking and coming up.
That's serious. I don't know what the problem might be. Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, great. I think it's my internet. It's showing your internet connection is unstable. And this is not, I had to get another internet. I'm using Spectranet now, not MTN. I don't know why the problem still persists. So you guys would have to be graceful because I don't know what's happening. All right. So like I was saying before, in Node.js, you couldn't write JavaScript on, the server side. JavaScript does not run on the server side, right? But now JavaScript can run on the server side. And as a front-end developer who knows JavaScript, you can transfer that skill to become a back-end developer. All right. So that's the advantage of JavaScript. In fact, as a back-end developer, you can transfer that skill to become a front-end developer. Although this time you just have to, add CSS and HTML to it. Okay. So that is that about an introduction to Node.js. And then there are some theoretical aspects of Node.js that I usually do not like to dabble into because those things at least students almost immediately forget after you teach them. All right. Asynchronous IO, non-blocking, event loop, and all the stuff. All right. Some of them are important and I will not leave them out. When I get to a concept that requires me to explain, for instance, the event loop, all right, I'm going to explain the emitter. I'm going to event emitter. I'm going to explain what it means, all right? But some of those other theories, your curiosity will take you there and you learn about them. Okay. So what else do we talk about? All right. So I mentioned that Node.js is made up of V8, V8 engine, right? But then there's another part of it called the lib uv. So that's the right pronunciation. So there is a lib uv. All right, the lib uv, lib uv. So this is like a library, all right, but written in C++. All right, so it's contained in Node.js. So what this does for us is like this is like our API to the native machine. All right, so this is like the guy in between V8 and your machine. So you have your machine here. Okay, you have your machine here. And then you have let's get this. And then you have your Node.js, all right? All right, so Node.js, and then you have JavaScript program here. So the JavaScript program runs on Node.js, so it interacts with Node.js. And Node.js has something called the binding, all right? Node.js bindings. I will call them APIs, all right? Node.js APIs that you use to interact with this libuv. Okay, so for instance, when you want to access information about the OS, you know that that has to do with the machine, all right? Information about the OS is going to live on the machine, okay? If you want to get access to memory and manage memory, all right, access to network, you know that your network, of course, has to do with the machine, okay? And stuff like that. All these things have to do with the machine. When you want to interact with something like this, you have to go through the libuv. All right, that's like the interface, the middleman that you can use to access these things. But then you do not directly interact with libuv. So you are here, you are this JS. This is the program, right? It doesn't come jump and interact with libuv. Node.js provides some functions which we call APIs, all right? Provide some functions that would interact with libuv, and then libuv, based on that function, knows what you need and then goes to the machine, get it back and return it to your Node.js function, and then you return to your program. So that's how it works. So if I'm going to group them, I'm going to say these guys belong to like a group, even though this might not make complete sense. And then these guys, all right, so if you think about it like a set, you're gonna see, all right, so they interact at some point. Okay, so that is that about the lib v. All right, so you need to cram is something the same. Even as you guys the syntax and you write your code, it's happening whether you understand it or not. But it's important that you know that they're happening there. All right. So that's about lib. Okay, if you want to become a very serious developer, you might want to look into it, but I don't advise you to bother about libuv at this point. All right, so let's go. So how do we see it from
Oh, is it just me or is
No, I think he went off. Maybe due to his service or something related to it.
Hello, Chima. I think T is back. Can you make him the host? Actually, you are the host, Chima.
You can transfer the host back to him.
Oh, I see. Hello, Mr. Chima Anago. Can you transfer the host back to me? I'm unable to share my screen without that.
Hold on, that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. Thanks.
No, let me log out. Let me go out because it's not so much. I think you're host now.
All right, thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, let's try to make a smooth transition to Node.js from the browser. All right, so if you check the browser, there is let's do this. Uh, if you check the browser, there is a global object called window, right? So you click on window, you type window there, and you get these guys. Okay. So because of this window object, are able to have access to some things that we use. For instance, the console. All right. So you see when we do console.log is a global function, all right? It exists under the window object, all right? So let's see, where are you, console? Console should be at the top. All right, so we check console the log. You see all this on input, on key down, and all the stuff. They are all global functionalities. Okay, I'm not able to find the console the log at this moment, but if you check closer, you see that it is there. All right, so these are part of the global object, and that's why we're able to have access to them. So when you console the log, it's not just some magic happening somewhere. Okay, that functionality exists in the window object. We could have done window.console the log, and you see that I telling the truth. All right. So you see that it's a member of the window object. So we can make use of it directly because it's globally available. All right. Now in Node.js, the Node.js version of that's the global object in Node.js is referred to as global. So for the web browser, so let's do this for the web browser and for Node. All right. So for the web browser, we had window as our global object. And then for Node, we have global. All right, so global. Okay. This is all right. So if I come to Node.js, let's do and then say global, you're going to see that we have an object here, and then there's some things that are available to us. Okay. So there are a lot of things that are not even showing here that you can make use of. All right, but we'll get to that. So global is the global object in Node, while window is the global object in the browser. Okay. So if you check this global object, you see that we have clear interval and we have clear timeout. We have set interval and we have set timeout. All right. That's global for Node. All right. But if you go back to the browser and say window, if we check, let's see if we can even find this one at least, because we don't want to waste time. Let's see set interval and set timeout. All right. So, in fact, this is a good place to even let you know that set interval and set timeout is not JavaScript exactly. All right. These are just extra functionalities that enhance what JavaScript can do. All right. So that's why you see it here, and then you see it in the Node.js global object. All right. So you have console.log here, of course, under window, and then you also have it in Node. So you can also make use of it in Node. All right. A console on the browser would be this window. This is the console. While on Node, it's going to represent the terminal, all right, where you are running Node.js. Okay, so there's some of these similarities that you need to know. All right. So talking about let's talk about Node now. Let's just stay on Node and forget the browser. So we're done with the browser. The only need of it will be for my escalate draw. So let's focus on our terminal now. All right. Let's see. So this terminal, some of you have not used it before now. Please confirm that you can still hear me in my unstable connection. So
Yes.
yes, somebody just all right, please make me host once more. My internet is so terrible. All right. Thank you so much. Share my screen again. Let's go. Okay, so to use your terminal, you simply, if you're on Mac, you check your launchpad and then you can search for it. You should have something called terminal. All right, click on it. And then there you go. This is your terminal. And if you have NodeJS installed, when you run Node, let's go to, all right. When you run Node, you're going to see that it takes you to what is called the Node REPL, REPL. Okay. So what does this mean? All right, this is an interface where you can run JavaScript. So you could do something like 2 + 2, and then you get the result 4. All right. You could do anything that you can do in JavaScript, and then it would be very valid over here. All right. So that is the Node REPL for you. All right. The full meaning, for those of us who might like to know more about it, it means read, eval, let's evaluate. What's this one now? Print, right? And then loop. Okay. So that's what it means. So read means that it can read a code. So for instance, you see this line is being read now. All right. Evaluate means it evaluates the line. All right. 2 + 2 will be 4. Print, it prints out the result for you. All right. And after print, it loops. What it means is that it goes back to the first, which is read. So you can see that it's now ready to receive more inputs from you. So that's the meaning of it. That's acronym or acronym, whatever it is. All right. So with the Node REPL, like I told you, okay, I don't know how to clear, so let me exit. All right, and let's go again. So enter, you just type Node on your terminal and press enter, and then you get into the version. So you can see your Node version running over here. And in this terminal, you can run anything you like. All right. So if you have VS Code installed, you don't need to go between the terminal and your VS Code and back and forth. All right. So it is integrated into VS Code. So what you just need to do is press your Option key on Mac, Option key and backtick. If you're on Windows, I don't know what the command might be for you. All right, it might be Control, it might be Alt backtick or Command backtick. So you could try any of that. Okay, so I do Option backtick, sorry, Control backtick on Mac, Control backtick, and then you see my terminal comes up. But then if you forget the shortcut, just go to the top, all right, and you see terminal, new terminal, and then it comes up, all right. So if you point on that, you see the shortcut associated with it. So for the Windows users, this might be your Expo, all right. So we have our terminal up, and the terminal is going to open in the folder that is currently active, all right. The project folder, that's where the terminal will open. So let me show you what I mean. If we get, oh man. So let's show you. If you get this guy, and let's just close it. All right, terminate. If I open it, by default, it is going to open the base, which is like the home. All right, the home location of your computer. So it will open on that base. If I say ls now, you see the things that are the applications and some stuff there. All right.
Okay, I found this on the web for you. See things.
Please. Okay. So it opens on that base, right? But then if you have a project open on Node.js and you activate your terminal, it's going to be open under that project folder, which is what you want to happen ideally. All right. So that is that. All right. So here under the terminal, we can now type node and press enter, and it takes us to node repel. All right. So here we can now start typing our node commands or our JavaScript commands. So 2 + 2 will give us 4. Okay. So that is that. All right, so let's talk a bit about some of the globals that we have access to. Let's talk a bit about some of the globals we have access to. Okay. So I have access to things like FS. All right. So what is FS? FS is short for file system. Okay. So when you type FS, you see that it's an object that has some functions inside of it, all right, or methods. Append file, then the async version and shown, okay. Chi mode, all right. If you are used to commands, all right, Linux commands or CMD commands, some of this would make sense to you, all right. But then these are many things that you can do with that FS module, all right. So you can even create a file with that. You can read a file, you can make directory. All right, so these are things that we have access to. So FS is an example of a Node.js binding that has access to the libuv. All right, so because you can see that we can do things that are related to our operating system using this FS module. Okay, so we have other stuff like process. All right, process is still another object, very large object that you can do a lot of things with, very interesting things with process. And when we get there, we're going to start talking about them. There is, which one is there again? There is OS, all right? So if you want to do things that has to directly interact with the OS, then you can do that, all right? I think you can do os.cp use. Okay, so when I call that function, you see that my computer has these CPUs. All right, there's Apple M1 Pro 24. All right, you see 1. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the 8 GB RAM, right? Or whatever it means. It has 8 cores. Yeah. So OS, CPUs, and then you get all these guys. All right. So this could come in handy when you are creating very complex applications that go deep down into the computer OS to make some manipulations. All right. I think there's a function or there's a method in this OS object that allows us to check the amount of free memory. All right. So when you try to install some applications and then the application itself tells you that there's not enough memory in your computer to make their installation. I'm not saying your operating system now. This is not a report from your operating system. It's a report from the application itself. Sometimes you might wonder, how was this application able to identify that there's not enough memory? So it's from things like this, all right, that has to do with the OS. So you see free memory. Let's try to see if that works for us. So os.free mem, and then I call it, and then you see that the amount of free memory I have here is this. So I can convert it to megabytes to know exactly how many megabytes, how many gigabytes or so, all right? But then it's going to come like this in this format. Okay, so there is another one. Let's see, there is version. I can get the version of my OS. So if my application is supposed to run on some versions, some OS versions and not on others, right? I can be able to detect using a function like this. Just check, is this OS this? If it's not, Is it less than this version? Is it greater than this version? And then I make my decision based on that. So that these are things that you can do. Sorry. And then there is network interfaces. All right. So you can see all the network interfaces that the user has. There is platform. Let's even check some of these. os.platform. All right. So this is a Darwin OS. You can do, right? You get the point. So the expo I always give to my students is that nothing is beyond you, right? So if you want to know what is available to you, right, you just simply console log that object, all right, and you see everything that you can do with it, all right? In this case, because we are running it directly on the terminal, you can see them. But if it was from a program, you would have to console log. In fact, let's write a program, right? Let's do server.js, okay? And then inside our program, we have to get access to the FS module. All right, FS. And then we can console the log FS. Okay. So instead of running the repo, all right, what we could do is we could just say node server.js. And then you see that it runs. All right, and this is the FS module. So you now know that the FS module gives me access to all these things that I see here. Okay. And what you could do is say change this to OS. So this is OS, and this is OS, and this is OS. All right. So you will simply run node server.js again, and this time you get the OS object printed, so you can do anything you want to do with them. All right. Basically, you see the things that are available for you, and then you can make use of them. Okay. If you have interest in process, you can get that from process. Okay. And then you save, and node server.js, it gives you the things you can do with process. All right, a lot of interesting stuff. Okay, so these are things that you could do. Just log that to the console, and then you see what's available. I could simply log global because global is globally available. All right, and then if I run my node server.js, I get the global object, so I can see the things that are available for me to do. All right, things like fetch, can use it to fetch data from an external API. Crypto, we can use it to encrypt text. All right, say for instance, you want to encrypt a password, you can use crypto for that to encrypt the password. And then you can also use the same crypto to decrypt that password. All right. So let's see if I can even do something with crypto. So there's CRYPTO. I think so. All right. So let's try. So we have let's pass key. Pass key equals crypto dot create cipher, right? Create cipher. Okay, cipher is deprecated. It's been a while. So cipher is deprecated. It's been a while since I made use of this raw. All right. So there are things like bcrypt. All right. Some of these packages are what we use instead of the how do I call it? Instead of the native crypto, we use stuff like bcrypt. All right. So it's been a while since I haven't tried to touch this crypto guy. I'm not even sure I've ever tried to touch it because we have stuff like bcrypt. Okay, so we'll come to that. So these are internal modules. All right, let me not go deep into it because a lot of things apparently has changed. So these are internal modules, all right, or core modules. They're called NodeJS core modules. So there are modules that come with Node.js that you can make use of. But then there's something called external modules, all right? So external modules can be found in a website called NPM, all right, which is Node Package Manager. In this website, you can browse, for instance, Bcrypt now. Not by Bcrypt. All right, Bcrypt. And then when you click on it, you see this is a module that you can install and then use in your program. All right, but let's see. It has two dependencies. All right, and so it depends on these two. It was created from these two, and then it has some dependents. Okay, so you can see all these dependents. Right, so we're going to talk about this maybe during the last class, but you should know that there's something called external modules. All right, and for a lot of us, so you can see this has a weekly download of over 1 million, almost 2 million. All right, developers making use of it. Okay, so the idea is Node.js has many core modules. As you can see, we'll make use of HTTP, the HTTP module, all right, to create an HTTP server or a HTTP server, all right? And this is a core module of Node.js. So it is very hard. It requires more effort for you to work with it, all right? And because it is usually too hard, you write too many codes, okay? Somebody came up with something called Express.js, all right? So Express.js is an external package. So you're seeing now, we had crypto as an internal package or a core package or module, right? And then the alternative is an external package called Bcrypt. So Bcrypt makes it easier to do some of those cryptography stuff, all right, that you might want to do. Becomes easier, right? HTTP is a core module, all right, but because it is usually too verbose, all right, then somebody came up with Express, which makes it more easier to work with, to create servers, right? So Express is now an easier, version of HTTP, okay? So usually people just come up and then create their own versions of a stuff or of a functionality, right, that makes it easier. Just like jQuery made it easier to make use of JavaScript itself. So it's a library built on top of JavaScript to make it easier. That's how external modules, all right, are. So you can see Express, all right. So this is the Express.js, and this is what we're going to be using. So you see 29 million, all right, downloads weekly. So this is very popular framework. All right, there's also Nest.js, all right. So the community keeps building on what already exists, all right, in order to make some things very easy. So we have evolved a lot, and there are some things that we repeat every time. So instead of writing those codes, those many codes, all right, I'm going to show you when we start doing, I'm not sure we'll get to that today, during today's class. But when we start creating a server, we'll first create a server with HTTP, which is the core module. And then I'm going to compare it with what it looks like when you create that same server with that same functionality using Express.js, and you see the difference, how easier it is to use Express than to use the core HTTP module. All right. But if you think you're a strong developer, you want to code with the HTTP, you still can. All right. You are going to suffer. You are going to suffer a lot and suffer unnecessarily. All right. So that's the point. So we have internal modules, that's core modules, and then we have external modules. And also we have custom modules. So I can decide to create a module by myself. All right. So let's say I have maths.js. Okay. What I'll do is I have a function to add, function add. Okay. And then that function takes in two numbers. All right. And then returns num1 plus num2. So this is my own module now, right? And then I'm going to export. So I'll say module.export, all right, equals, just put add there. So I'm going to export this module. Because I have it exported, it means that other modules can make use of it. All right. So here I'm simply going to say const mat equals require. All right. Require this file. Okay. And so here I could just console.log, for instance, mat, so that we see. So if I run node server.js, you see that we have mats. Mats is an object, all right, that has the add function. So if you come back here, you see that we are actually exporting an object that has the add function. All right, so this is a reference to the add function. So that's what we get exactly stored in mats. All right, so require is simply going to check the file that you pass into it and check for exports. All right, and then that export is what is returned and stored in the variable here. In this case, I decided to call the variable mats. All right, so we'll console log mats, we see that we have that object exactly. So I could even decide to call dot add, right? Because that's an object, so dot add. And then dot add is a function, and then that function takes in two numbers, 1 and 2, and returns the result. So if we run node server.js, you see that we get 5. All right, so this is how you write custom modules. Okay, and then there's also the possibility for you to write your own module. Just as somebody was smart enough to come up with bcrypt, okay, you can decide to write your own. Another person was smart enough to write express on top of HTTP or HTTPS. You can decide to also write your own. All right, so when you write your own module, you can host it in NPM or host it on NPM, okay? And then other people are able to download your module and make use of it in their program. Okay, so that's a topic for another day. Okay, so should you have need of an external module, how do you install it? First of all, you would have to, so what we've been doing so far is that we have been running JavaScript files, all right, using the node command, okay? But there's a more excellent way. We can initialize this project to be a node project, all right? So we want to be able to do some special things with this project or in this project. Just as if you have ever used GitHub before, right? You need to initialize the project to be a Git project so that you can use Git functionality in that project. In that same way, if you want your project to be a node project so that you can be able to do things that are specific to node in that project, you have to initialize it, all right? And it's very simple to do that. You just say node npm, init, all right? npm init, initialize, okay? And you press enter. So what that does for you is that it gives you this prompt, right? You can read through it. And then it's going to ask you to specify the package name. All right, you could call it anything, but the default suggestion for the package name is NodeJS intro, which is gotten from the folder name. All right. But if you don't want that, if you want to change the value of that, you can give your own what's it called, name. So I could call it MATLAB, for instance. All right, say sorry, name can no longer contain capital letters. All right, so say mat_lab. Okay, and then that goes, and then it's asking us for the version. What's the version of this Node.js application? I'm just going to say it's 1.0.0, which is the default value given to me. All right, so to do that, just press enter to accept the default. So I'll say enter. Description, I'm just going to put anything, a basic Node.js mat library. Okay, and then enter. Entry point. What's the entry point for this program? So it means that when this Node.js program is run on the server, where is the entry point to the program? Just like you have index.html as the entry point to your website. So if you have index.html, that's the first page that is loaded, right? That is what Node.js is asking of you right now, all right? It's saying that when this Node.js program is loaded in the server, right? What is the first file that should be looked up? All right, that's the entry point. And I'm going to say the first file should be server.js. All right, they were suggesting mat.js, but I'm going to do server.js. Okay, so what's the test command? So in case you're writing tests for your program, then you can specify the test command. All right, and I'm going to just say enter. So does this project have a Git repo associated to it? There's none. So I'm going to let it blank. All right, so keywords, there is none. I'm going to press author. There's none. License, I'm going to choose the default, enter, and then you see I get the last prompt, which is asking me, is this okay? So this, you can see what is going to be generated. Is it okay? Name is MATLAB, version is 1.0, and blah 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 blah. Yes. So, and then you see that we have a new file here called package.json. Package.json, that's the new file created. All right. So most times you are going to see this file, all right, in the programs that you will be doing, will be creating. All right. So package.json is a special JSON file that holds configurations about your Node.js project. All right. This is a very special file. In fact, you can't do without it if you're writing Node.js programs. All right. It's going to hold a lot of information about your project. Okay. So now you see that we have script. So let's focus on script. All right. During the creation of this package or JSON file or the initialization of this project, we did not specify scripts. All right, we can recognize that we specified name, version, description, all right, main, which is entry point, author, license. We did all this, but script we did not specify. All right, so this is just auto created for you. Okay, so test. If we had provided a test command during the initialization, you would have seen that command here. Okay, but then start, because we did not specify, so you get this. All right, so the start script, what does it do for us? What it does is that when we run that script, all right, is a scripts, we'll have test and we'll have start. So when we run that start script, what happens is that this command is going to be executed. And if you recognize this command, this is the command we have been using to run our JavaScript files, if you remember. All right. So now we don't need to run that command anymore. We don't need to say node start server.js. We just simply say npm start. All right. And then it knows what to do. So you see that this command was run, and then we get our result. Okay, and it exits, all right, immediately. So that is it. So these are scripts. We can write more scripts. There's pre-start and some other, scripts that we can come up with. Okay, but then the usefulness of this is going to make more sense as we progress. All right, so this is it. And before we go, let's just write a simple server. All right, before we end the class for today, let's write a simple server. So what I'll do is I'll just go to NodeJS, the official website, and I can just get the code from there. So I'll copy and paste. And this gives me an opportunity to explain something to you that I might have missed. So what do we have here? So we have a very simple server here. All right. So this is supposed to be stored in a file called server.mjs, all right, which is modern JavaScript. Okay, so I would have changed this file format to MJS, but I'm not going to do that. throughout the course of our training, we are not going to be writing MJS files. We'll be writing JS files. The reason is because there are differences in behaviors, all right? And some of them, so MJS is relatively new. I know that some of you, when you saw it, you were like, oh, that's something new. So it's relatively new. So there are some differences in behaviors, all right, that may require too many explanations and get you confused. Okay. So we will not be doing MJS, or we'll be doing JS. So it's going to work almost the way that you know JavaScript works, all right? But then at the end of the program, I would appreciate if somebody can even bring it to my notice, right? I'm just going to give you a brief intro to MJS, just to let you know that, oh, if you decide to go with MJS, which is the future actually, all right? If you decide to go with MJS, these are the things that you should know, how MJS is different from JS, all right? And how you can learn about it and start using it going forward, okay? But if you get a job today, you can be 95% sure that that code base uses server.js, and it's going to use server.js for a long time. Unless it's a fresh program and then the developers there are, trying to try their hands on new stuff, all right? But then you can encounter MJS, but most likely 75% of code bases out there will be using server.js, and that will remain for a long time, okay? So I need to make that clear. Now, if I had named this file .mjs, I would be able to use the import keyword, all right, which is associated with ECMAScript, all right? And Node.js by default uses what is called CommonJS. So if you check this file, you see that, okay, I'm not doing any imports there, all right? So the CommonJS syntax would have looked like this. So you'll see const create server equals to require, all right? And then you see node HTTP, all right? Or HTTPS or HTTP, whatever. So this would have been CommonJS version, all right? These two are different, okay? This is supported by the MJS format, or you can even come here and say type module to support that. All right, but then we won't be going into all that. All right, so we'll be using the CommonJS syntax for our teachings. All right, maybe in the end you can now introduce import and you can go and learn more about that. So I'm going to replace this with my CommonJS syntax. All right, and then let's see. I think everything should be fine. Let's test and see if everything is okay. So npm start. And there you go. We have a server running. So you see, listening on 127.0.0, right? So what does that mean? So if I copy this link, all right, and then go to my browser and paste it, you see that I get hello world returned to me. So this is a basic JavaScript server. All right, so you see, we're saying write to head 200. The content type is going to be text. All right, and plain. So let's inspect and see what that translates to. So if you go to your network tab, refresh, you see that we have this response. That's what we're concerned about. And you see we get status code 200, which corresponds to this. All right. Then we also get the content type as text plain, which corresponds to this. And then we get the value that is returned, which is just a string, and that is going to be what you see in response. All right, so if you remember when we started, I told you that with Node.js, you can decide the format you want to return in. You want to return JSON, you want to return XML, you want to return text. It all depends on you. So in this case, we are returning text. All right, so I could have done application. Is that correct spelling of application? And then we could have decided to do JSON.string if so JSON let's see message. So I'll stop my server and restart my server. Let's see if that works. And then if I refresh, you see that if we click on this, we now have header 200, quite all right. And then content type is now applications like JSON. And then our response is now in JSON format. Okay, so you can decide what format you want to return in. Okay, so that is that. So in our next class, we are going to explore more about servers, right? We'll start creating servers, get requests. We'll start from get requests basically, and then we'll see what we'll be able to do. So if you have questions based on the things that we've talked about, I'm going to take your questions now before we call it a day. Exit and clear. Exit and clear. Daniel Johnson. All right. So let's get your questions. If you have questions, this class is usually very, very impressive because it seems like you guys read ahead a lot. So it's usually not too much questions. All right. So I'm going to assume that we're good.
Hello, T.
Yes.
I would have loved it if you would have had the opportunity to show us how to install NodeJS in our system. If you cannot do it today, maybe this next time, or maybe you can make a video and show us, especially maybe those who are using Windows.
Okay. Did you come across the links I posted on the Node.js channel?
No, I didn't check. I will check it.
Okay. So those links will be helpful. So I posted some links for Mac OS and Windows.
No problem. I'll check. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. It was nice sharing this session with you guys. So I'll see you on Thursday, same time.
So, it was awesome.